Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be starting off by talking about the Rangers and the Hurricanes, as the Rangers were able to finally beat the Hurricanes in that Game 6 to eliminate them from the Stanley Cup playoffs. Next, we will talk about the late-night matchup between the Oilers and the Canucks. After that, we will dive into the offseason for the... after that, how to shake it up a bit, because there was news about Craig Berube being hired by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we're going to be talking about Craig Berube and how that hire can affect the Toronto Maple Leafs and how it can affect that core moving forward. After that, I will be previewing the pivotal matchup between the Oilers and the Canucks as they have Game 6 on Saturday. And then to wrap up the show, as we have been doing for all the hockey podcasts, as the playoffs keep going forward. With the time that we're at, it usually is perfect to talk about the games that are currently going on. So that will be what we're doing in our fifth segment. So with all of that being said, and without further ado, we're going to get right into this Carolina Hurricanes and New York Rangers Game 6. But before I do that, I'll remind you guys that we have this tips and donations link. If you have any questions, any comments, anything you want me to read, or if you just want to support the GSMC Sports Network, GSMC Podcast Network, use the link that you see on the screen now at gsmcpodcast.net for any of your questions, comments, or concerns for the channel, for our podcasters, or anything like that. But with that being said, we're going to get right into this New York Rangers Carolina Hurricanes series. Rangers finish off the Canes in 6. They are finally able to win this series. All throughout the series, you felt like New York was the better team. The Rangers have the stronger core, have the better top six, have the better defensemen, have the by far better goaltender, as we've seen throughout this entire series. Although Kochetkov did good in his starts and Anderson did not lose the Hurricanes this series, so to speak. But it really was the New York Rangers overpowering the Carolina Hurricanes in this one. Their top six was fantastic the entire series, and it was an exclamation point in that third period for the New York Rangers. Chris Kreider's natural hat trick to be able to pull that one off. Another name that I really want to talk about a little bit, Keandre Miller. Man, this guy, defenseman that really wasn't on a lot of people's radars, but has to be now. Keandre Miller was amazing. The entire series was amazing, the entire postseason. And he's been playing a lot better than what I thought the production from Keandre Miller was going to look like. And of course, the name that really you have to highlight when you're talking about the New York Rangers in these playoffs, you have to talk about Igor Shesterkin. Man, this guy played absolutely insane. He was a brick in the wall. Maybe not so much in the last 3 games, but the entire series he's been playing amazing. The entire series he's been their number one goaltender, been the guy really there holding his weight. So Igor Shesterkin, probably, as I talked about on my Wednesday podcast, probably your Conn Smythe winner so far for the New York Rangers, although you're getting excellent production out of your entire top 6. So we'll get right into the game breakdown, and then after that, I do want to talk a little bit about the Carolina Hurricanes and what their future kind of looks like with a little watered down core is what it looks like to be in Carolina. But the game, first off, Carolina Hurricanes were the first ones to score in this one. They jumped out to an early lead. Martin Necas gets a great pass, or gives a great pass, and it was a great forecheck from the Canes, and that would led to the offensive zone turnover, led to a shot out in front, and it was Jordan Martinook who gave him the pass from behind the net. And yeah, he does no mistake, buries it. They go up 1-0. And then it's Seth Jarvis on the power play. I talked about him so much. This is in the second period now. Seth Jarvis on the power play, finally getting a point in this series. I had him as a very key player in the series. They were getting great production out of this guy. Last year, they're getting great production out of this guy for the first series of this postseason when they played the New York Islanders. He really helped them. I believe he had 9 points. No, not 9 points. He led the team in points. I think he had 7 points in 5 games in that series, and then nothing this entire Rangers series. So seeing him get on the scorecard, I really thought that they had this one, because he was the name that I was looking to produce so much, with Sebastian Aho doing so much of the scoring. We're looking at the lower line guys, Seth Jarvis, maybe Jesper Kokoniemi, Martin Necas. He was able to score in this one, Brady Shea. But it wasn't meant to be for the Carolina Hurricanes in this one. The crowd, though, at PNC Arena was very loud. If you want to look in this picture, there's still a lot of guys. After their team get eliminated, there's still so many people in the crowd here. That's a very promising sign when you're the Carolina Hurricanes, the amount of fans that are behind them at PNC Arena. And then in the second period, Vincent Trocheck was able to cut the lead that the Carolina Hurricanes had in half. It was Panarin gave him a shot from on the point. He was on the blue line. He just sends a puck on. Vincent Trocheck with a deflection. It goes in the back of the net. That's not Freddie Anderson's fault, but it's a goal nonetheless. And Trocheck cuts the lead in half. But Sebastian Aho, pretty much right after that, was able to reclaim that lead. He gets assists from Andrei Svechnikov, Jakub Slavin. This was Jakub Slavin's only second assist in the entire postseason. He needed to produce way more than he did. He just was not able to get on that score sheet like we really expected from him. In this game, a keynote in this game, there was so many posts hit by both teams, really, so it didn't really affect the game. But, man, I have it in my notes. Have to have been 10 posts hit in this game so far, and that was like midway through the second, or a little bit late in the second was when I wrote that down. But, man, a lot of posts were hit in this game. A lot of scoring chances missed from those opportunities, too. And then in the third period, as the New York Rangers are down 3-1, it looks bleak. They have 13 minutes left, and here comes the onslaught. Chris Kreider, first goal. Zibanejad sends a shot on net. Chris Kreider just jams home the rebound, just pushing it past Freddie Anderson. Just his stick overpowers Freddie Anderson's skate blade, and it goes in the back of the net. Pretty much right after that, about 4 minutes after that, Chris Kreider ties it on the power play. Another deflection goal. Panarin gets his second assist of the day. This was another Artemi Panarin just sending the puck on net, and it finds a stick, and it's Chris Kreider's stick. And then Chris Kreider finishes off his natural hat trick with a Rangers comeback, 4-3. This one, he finds the puck in the just in the slot, and he sends it 5-hole on Freddie Anderson. He really willed the Rangers in the third to beat the Hurricanes, and it was great to see that individual effort. If you are a New York Rangers fan, of course the Carolina Hurricanes fans don't share that same sentiment. And then an empty net goal finishes the Rangers off, finishes this game 5-3. And the New York Rangers are now going on to await the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. Whoever wins that series, as I do have the scores up, it is currently 1-1. Panthers are on a power play right now. With 22 seconds left on the power play, 1-1, 4 minutes left in the third period. I'll keep you guys up to date as much as I keep myself up to date on that game. But yeah, in this series, the New York Rangers top six was really what did it for them. That's what I expect to carry them throughout this entire postseason. When you get a top six of Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin, Alexis Lafreniere, I'm blanking on a lot of names here, but let me tell you, it is a very, very impressive top six. You have Vincent Trocheck in that, and then you also have Chris Kreider, not Chris Kreider. Jack Roslovic was playing on the second line. Sometimes it's Lafreniere, sometimes it's Wenberg playing on that second line. So yeah, this New York Rangers top six is very skilled, can score at will, and is scary to any team. I would say the Florida Panthers match up the best with the New York Rangers. I think their top six can definitely match this New York Rangers top six, and I think the physicality that they're getting from Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk is going to be very pivotal when you're talking about a matchup with the Rangers. We saw the Rangers bleed in this series. You saw that they were human. You saw that they can lose a game in this series with the Canes' attempt at a comeback here. Of course, they started this postseason 7-0. There has never been a team to start a postseason 7-0 to not have gone on to at least play in the Cup final. So the New York Rangers have their path laid out for them. They know they have one more series. They need to win only 4 more games, and they're in the Stanley Cup final for the first time for the New York Rangers. Since 2014 when they lost to the Los Angeles Kings. Of course, the New York Rangers are not the best historically team, but they have always been very talented. The last cup that they have won was in 1994, that Marc Messier Cup. This is This isn't the exact same core, but this is a very similar core to kind of what you saw in that 1994 team. Very skilled forwards, a lot of very skilled forwards. You have a great defenseman on the blue line, and you're getting spectacular goaltending out of Igor Shesterkin here. So I think the New York Rangers have a very easy path. They see what's in front of them. For the New York Rangers, that's what their future holds. On the other side of this one, the Carolina Hurricanes, I would be a little bit worried if I were them. You're losing a lot in free agency. I believe you're losing 3 of your top 6 defensemen. You're losing Teuvo Teravainen, who is a UFA right now. Seth Jarvis, you're going to need to re-sign as an RFA. If I'm not mistaken, they only have, I think they have $23 million in cap room to make all those moves without re-signing anybody so far. So the Carolina Hurricanes are going to have a very different core than what you saw on the ice today. Every year they kind of go through a transformation of their middle 6. It's kind of been a revolving door since they really became prominent in 2020 or 2019. So it's going to be interesting to see what this team does in the offseason, how it looks, what this future holds for the Carolina Hurricanes. But I think that is a story for a pod on another day. I think I'll talk about all of the losing teams in this postseason on a different podcast. Talk about what their future holds, what they should be doing in the offseason, as the offseason is closer than we really think it is, as the Stanley Cup, we're getting into the East or the conference finals, and after that, just one more series left, and then the NHL season is over. We'll crown a winner, we'll give out the awards, and then it's right into the offseason where a lot of these teams are going to make a lot of moves. I think the Carolina Hurricanes might be the biggest mover in this offseason. You're losing Jake Ensel. You're losing a lot of guys on this team. So it's going to be a very different core. It's going to have to be a better core. It's going to have to be an improvement because the New York Rangers are going to run it back pretty similar. The Florida Panthers have a core, and they're sticking to them. The Boston Bruins have been good as long as I've been alive. You have up-and-coming teams, the Devils, the Senators in this Eastern Conference. The Blue Jackets have the best prospect pool. They could be contending here soon. You have a lot of teams that can make noise. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I haven't even mentioned them. We'll talk about them in the third segment, how good of a team that can be. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the Carolina Hurricanes do in this offseason. I don't think that they go into rebuild mode. I don't think that they have the picks to go into rebuild mode. They have all of their picks for the next 3 drafts, but they don't have anybody else's. They're not going to trade anybody because everybody that they have right now is a UFA or RFA. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I can't wait to see what the Carolina Hurricanes do in this offseason. And with that being said, we're going to take our first break of the night here. And when I get back, we'll be talking about the Western Conference final game, or Western Conference game from last night, the Edmonton Oilers dropping another one to the Vancouver Canucks.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, guys, and we are back for our second segment of the night. Oilers drop Game 5 to the Canucks. Let me change what you guys are seeing here to this goal by JT Miller. This is the game-winning goal. We'll talk about that when we get into the game breakdown. And actually, we're going to get right into the game breakdown, and then we're going to talk about the series we're going to save a lot of the future series talks for our fourth segment of the night. I want to dive deeper into the Oilers, into that core, and talk about kind of what this postseason could mean for this Edmonton Oilers core. This is the Edmonton Oilers. I'm focusing more on them than I am a lot of other teams in this postseason because you have the greatest player in the world. And this might be one of the best opportunities for the Edmonton Oilers to win a Stanley Cup. So I'm scrutinizing the Edmonton Oilers a lot in this postseason, and for good reason. You have Leon Draisaitl, you have Connor McDavid, you have your game production from Evan Bouchard. Calvin Pickard has looked pretty good, so you can't blame goaltending anymore. We'll talk a lot more about that in our fourth segment of the night, but just talking about the game right now, Evander Kane in the slot, easy shot on Shelovs. That's the first goal of the night. It's the Edmonton Oilers that started. Guess who gets the assist? It's Leon Draisaitl with his 13th assist of this postseason. That's point number 21 in 10 games. Over 2 points per game Leon Draisaitl is at in this postseason. What more can you say about this guy? What more can you say about Connor McDavid? We need to see more production out of depth pieces. Darnell Nurse has to learn how to play hockey again. They gave him a 9-point. We're going to save all that talk later. But yeah, Draisaitl continues his monster postseason with a primary assist on this goal. It was a great find to Evander Kane, who was just alone in the slot. More alone in the slot players. We saw it a lot in the Rangers game 6. We're seeing it a lot in this game 5 here in Edmonton. A lot of players alone in the slot. You can't have that if you're a defenseman. And let me tell you, this crowd in Vancouver was amazing. I noted the crowd in Edmonton, and I said that there was a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans. When the Vancouver Canucks tied that game up, when they had the empty net, it was loud in that arena in Rogers Place. So it got very loud in Vancouver. Carson Soucy snipes this puck over Pickard. It's an unassisted goal. The puck just finds him alone. He's on the top right dot. He comes back from his 1-game suspension, and he immediately produces for the Vancouver Canucks. This is his first goal of this postseason. This might be, and I wouldn't be shocked to find out, this could be Carson Soucy's first ever postseason goal of his career. This is coming back from the 1-game suspension. Maybe he feels a little hard done by getting suspended. I might be, the incident, we talked about it. I don't think that it's really Carson Soucy's fault as much as it's Nikita Zadorov's fault. So I feel hard done, and he might have showed it in this shot. But let me tell you, the reaction he had after he saw this goal go in, he just goes straight to the crowd, and it's electric. You just love to see that if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan. And this team is a very fun team to root for. Let me tell you, the Vancouver Canucks have great players. Their entire forward group is skilled. They're fast. They're young. And I think that the Vancouver Canucks can be contending for a very long time in the National Hockey League. They have shown a lot of flashes this year, and they're not done. They currently hold a 3-2 series lead on these Edmonton Oilers, and they can definitely get this one done here. So that's the goal to tie it up. You have a cross-crease play from the Edmonton Oilers that get their second and final goal of the game. This is in the first period. They go 40 minutes of non-scoring. Janmark, this is his first goal of the postseason. For the Edmonton Oilers, they go 40 minutes not scoring, and they go the entire 60 minutes without a power play goal. And they had opportunities. I believe that they had 3 power play opportunities in this game to not score a goal. It's very unlike the Edmonton Oilers. It might be a little bit unfair that we're talking about this team like you're not scoring a goal. This is bad, or you're not scoring a power play goal. This is bad production out of your power play. When you look at every other team, they can go 0 for 4, 1 for 4, 1 for 4, 2 for 4, and then that's league average. But for the Edmonton Oilers, having that 45% power play percentage in these playoffs, you're expecting them to produce, and they did not get it done. And that's kind of what led them to dropping this game 5. It's very hard for the Edmonton Oilers. Now their back's against the wall. They're not going to be able to play as freely as they have going 2-2 in this game, even before that. It's a lot harder when your back's against the wall. But we've talked about it plenty in other series. The hardest game to win is that game, or is that 4th win in the postseason. As we see the Florida Panthers might have just won the fourth game of the postseason. 1.5 minutes left in that game. The Florida Panthers score, and the Boston Bruins have an empty net, down 2-1. The New York Rangers might have found their opponent in the next round in the Florida Panthers, who probably, and there it is, that's the final. Florida Panthers beat the Boston Bruins 2-1 in Game 6. Back to what we were talking about. We'll talk about that more in the fifth segment, what that could mean for the New York Rangers, what that means for the Florida Panthers, what that means for the Boston Bruins. That's going to be an interesting one to dive deep into. And 10 minutes from now, you'll have the puck drop at the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, another Game 6, another series closeout game over there. But as we were talking about, power play for the Oilers has to be better. You need to get production from those guys. When Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Zach Hyman are all out on the ice, they have to get production. And they didn't in this game. Nothing from Zach Hyman in the last 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. You're not expecting him to be an all-star. 50 goals was out of the blue for Zach Hyman, so you're not expecting him to be an all-star, but you are expecting to get a little bit more production than they have out of him in this series especially. Philip, okay. This goal to tie it for the Vancouver Canucks, Philip DeJesper. This is as much of a nobody as you get on a playoff team. No disrespect to Philip DeJesper, but this is a fourth liner, and in this game he does a spinorama and a 5-hole goal to tie the game up for the Vancouver Canucks. I bet if you quiz 95% of hockey fans, and you ask, do you know what team Philip DeJesper plays for? I would say 95 of them have no clue. Getting production from depth forwards like that is great for the Vancouver Canucks. I was shocked when you see a forward that is classified as I don't want to say nobody, because nobody in the NHL is really a nobody, but when you see a forward that hasn't had the most established career in the NHL to do a move like that in the postseason, in the playoffs against the Edmonton Oilers, oh man, that is something to watch. So yeah, I mean, that was an insane goal from the fourth line. It was a great forecheck. He created the turnover in the offensive zone. That's what fourth lines are for, really. And he was able to do a spinorama to get the 5-hole goal past Calvin Pickard. And then 2-2 going down to the wire. It looks inevitable for overtime. Once again in this series, it looks inevitable for overtime. 31 seconds left. JT Miller. You see the goal on your screen right now. This is the first time in Stanley Cup playoff history that 2 games back-to-back were decided by last-minute goals. That is insane. That is an outrageous stat, and it is very impressive that the Vancouver Canucks were able to win this game. Were able to pull this one off. The Vancouver crowd were on fire after this one went in for JT Miller. And the Vancouver Canucks get their first line, were able to get it done in this one. Unlike the Edmonton Oilers first line, that's we talked about it with Edmonton Oilers not getting production from the first line. When it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, you are awarding the depth pieces that scored in this one with the final second goal. That was really the difference. I don't believe either team had a power play goal. Yeah, no team had a power play goal in this one. So it was just strictly 5-on-5 hockey. I talked about it, I think, Wednesday. I talked about it in my series breakdowns. The most important thing for the Vancouver Canucks in this series is 5-on-5. They have to win on 5-on-5 because they're going to lose on special teams. They're going to lose bad on special teams. In this game, 3-2, 5-on-5 goals. They win 5-on-5. They win the game. You want to see it a little bit more comfortable when it does come to 5-on-5 because they do outclass the Edmonton Oilers 5-on-5. They were the best team in the Western Conference for a reason. They're one of the best teams in hockey for a long stretch of this season for a reason. Their 5-on-5, their forwards were amazing. Their 2D on the point were always really good. Carson Soucy getting a goal in this one, that's production out of a good defenseman. So it's a really good sign for the Vancouver Canucks, and I think that they're very confident going into Game 6. It's back at Rogers Place in Edmonton. I don't know how much home ice advantage really means when it comes down to these Canadian teams. I know it's a very long stretch in between Vancouver and Edmonton. I bet it's like a 6-7 hour drive in between those two regions. However, when a lot of hockey fans will make that track when it comes to playoff hockey, and Vancouver fans will make that track when it comes to playoff hockey. They love this team. The Vancouver Canucks fans love this team, and they are going to be electric in Rogers Place if they were able to close it out in Game 6. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen in this series. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We're going to be talking about how I expect it to play out and what it could mean for both teams in that fourth segment, as I mentioned. But before that, in this, actually, before I get to any of that, I'm wondering if either of these teams can contend with the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars, who, first off, on paper, I think both the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche are better than both these teams. Secondly, I think that the Colorado Avalanche are so skilled, and I think that they just had a bump in the road when they lost Valerie Nichushkin. That was just a bump in the road for them. We saw that in Game 4, dropping that game. It didn't look like they had a prayer in that one, but in Game 5, they were able to turn back, win that one. I cannot wait to see who wins this Colorado Avalanche and Dallas Stars Game 6. I think if the Colorado Avalanche win this Game 6, I think the 3-1 comeback is completely on, and I think the Colorado Avalanche would probably make it out of the Western Conference if they win this series. This is a fun team. This is a great team. So I don't know if either of these teams can really contend. I think the Edmonton Oilers match up the best offensive-wise with the Colorado Avalanche. I think Connor McDavid is the only forward that can really contend against the greatness that is Cal McCarr right now. So I'm going to be very interested to see who wins that Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche series, and then I'm going to be very interested to see if either of these teams are able to contend when it comes down to beating the Dallas Stars or the Colorado Avalanche. With all that being said, we're going to take our second break of the night, and when I get back, we have our third segment. Craig Berube is named the Maple Leafs head coach, what that could mean for the Maple Leafs, and what's next for them.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, guys, we are back with our third segment of the night. Maple Leafs hire Craig Berube as their next head coach. Before we talk about that, though, I would like to remind you guys, if you want to support, I clicked the wrong button. If you guys would like to support the stream, GSMCpodcast.net in any way, you have the tips and donations link right up there at GSMCpodcast.net, as I had a little bit of technical difficulties right there, but it's all good. GSMCpodcast.net if you guys have any questions, anything you want me to read out loud live on air, or if you just want to support us. It means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. Craig Berube, however, is named as the next head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs, we talk about them a lot, but you have to talk about them a lot. They have the biggest fan base in the NHL. They're the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL, really. That's always my comparison. They haven't won since 1967. The Cowboys haven't won since the 80s. Very similar teams they are. That's my little Cowboy slander right there for Andrew Tate, if he's watching. Our boss here at GSMC, of course, is a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I gotta Gotta throw a little shade being a Steelers fan myself. So if he's watching, there it was. But Craig Berube for the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's a big hire. Craig Berube has had success in his coaching career at one stop specifically. It was the St. Louis Blues. He was the AHL coach for the St. Louis Blues. And then in Chicago, the Chicago Wolves was their AHL team at the time. Then he became an assistant head coach for the Blues in 2017. 2018, when they fired their old head coach, Mike Yao, he became the interim head coach for the rest of the season. And from there, at the time that he picked up the St. Louis Blues in 2018 to 2019, that season, they were dead last in the NHL. Granted, they had like 7 games in hand on anybody else, but they were dead last in the NHL. The team was in turmoil. They were fighting a lot. I believe that there was a video that came out during that time of a fight that happened in practice in a morning skate. So the team was in absolute turmoil, but the St. Louis Blues were able to do the absolute impossible and go 30-10-5 with a franchise record 11-game winning streak to earn the 3rd seed in the Central Division to make it to the playoffs, and then they advanced all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. And in the Stanley Cup Final, they were able to beat the Boston Bruins in a Game 7 with a 4-1 win, and that's the story of Craig Berube in St. Louis. It's that one season really for him. He was a finalist for the Jack Adams that year. I believe John Cooper was the one that went on to win that Jack Adams Award. And after a 3-year extension in 2022, it was disappointing season this year in 2023-2024 for the St. Louis Blues. They were expected to contend, but they were not able to. He was fired on December 12th, 2023 from the St. Louis Blues. And since then, now he's taken over to be the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. What does Craig Berube bring to the table? Well, you have a winning culture with Craig Berube. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He was a fantastic forward for the. He was a fantastic forward for a bunch of teams. He played all around the Metro Division. That is currently the Metro Division. Of course, it wasn't then. He played for the Flyers, the Maple Leafs, the Flames, the Capitals, and the Islanders. He was an undrafted player. He played for 18 years, and he's coached since 2004, really. He took up coaching under the Philadelphia Flyers, who was his first destination as a player as well. Craig Berube, all of this to say, he is a seasoned veteran in the National Hockey League. He's been a part of the NHL in some way, shape, or form since 1986. That is, let's do some quick math here, 38 years. So he has been a mainstay of the National Hockey League, and he's a great coach too. You don't win a Stanley Cup without being an amazing coach. Show me one that's done it, and I'll give that one up. But what can he do for this Toronto Maple Leafs team that seem kind of in turmoil, seem like they don't really have a direction, don't really know what they're doing? Well, first off, I think he's going to get what he needs from John Tavares. I think that's the first one that you're going to look to turn it around. When Craig Berube came in 2019 for the St. Louis Blues, he looked immediately upon Alexander Pietrangelo to turn the ship around. That was the veteran defenseman. The Toronto Maple Leafs equivalents of that might be Morgan Rielly. However, I don't think Morgan Rielly is going to be able to turn the team around as much as John Tavares can. When it comes to postseason play, at least, this team has failed in the postseason. That's why Sheldon Keefe got fired. We talked about that when Sheldon Keefe got fired. Why he did. It was because they didn't get it done in the postseason. So, Craig Berube knows what he needs to do. He knows the job at hand. He knows the task at hand. He knows what he needs to do, and he knows that he needs to win in the postseason. How does he do that with this core, with this Toronto Maple Leafs core? You need production out of John Tavares. They didn't get it. Austin Matthews needs to be a better goal scorer in the playoffs. He wasn't this year. The biggest question mark that the Toronto Maple Leafs have on their team right now is Mitch Marner. Where does he go? Does he go anywhere? It's been reported that he isn't very happy in Toronto. He wants to change of scenery. He wants to be on a team where he can kind of be a number one option. What does that look like? Mitch Marner has one more year, $11 million. They could definitely use that $11 million because you have RFAs in Holmberg, Dewar, and Gregor. Dewar, Gregor, and Nick Robertson are all RFAs. That means that they are still under team control, but you do need to re-sign them. I believe you have to allocate $5-6 million to those three guys. You have Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, who are UFAs. I think those guys have to walk. On the team, on defense, you have Timothy Liljegren, who's an RFA. Maybe $1 million around that for him. He might get a two-way deal. Timothy Liljegren hasn't really panned out as much as we expected. Coming out of that 2016 draft class, I believe he was in the 2016, maybe 2017 draft class. But he hasn't panned out as much as they were expecting him to or hoping him to. You have UFA defensemen. This is the big one. You have Ilya Debushkin, who I think you might let walk. He has not proved to be a good playoff defenseman whatsoever. Joel Edmondson, UFA. I think you saw good production out of him, but do you have enough money really to use? You have $6 million, I'm saying, allocate to the RFAs. Maybe $7 million allocate to RFAs. You currently have an $18.5 million cap space. That leaves you $11 million for TJ Brody, Joel Edmondson, I won't say Timothy Liljegren. Maybe Ilya Samsonov if they want to keep him. That means TJ Brody is walking, probably. Joel Edmondson is probably walking. That leaves you with 4 defensemen on your team. Morgan Riley, Jake McCabe, Simon Benoit, Connor Timmins. You need 2 and I'll get to a point here. 2 free agent defensemen who are not cheap. You need a goalie if you're not going to re-sign Ilya Samsonov. That's not cheap. You're going to need to find forward depth somewhere, somehow. And you don't have money. You have only $18 million in cap space right now. That means you gotta move on from Mitch Marner, who's taking up $11 million of that cap space. If you move on from Mitch Marner, you have $29 million. That means $29 million, $23 million after you take the RFAs out. $23 million, that's $4 million for a goalie, $19 million. You have 2 veteran defensemen that you probably want to add to this core. That will be about $5 million each, $10 million. You're at $14 million, $5 million left for veteran forwards. And I think you can do that then. That's why they need to move on from Mitch Marner. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think that that's the number one question revolving the Leafs in this offseason. I'm very interested to see where he goes. If he goes to kind of a rebuilding team ready to contend like the Devils, like the Senators, like the Blue Jackets, or if he goes to a team that is already contending. Maybe a Hurricanes can take him on. Maybe an LA Kings can take him on. It will be interesting to see what those teams do. What Mitch Marner wants to do, where he expects to go. He does have a no trade clause on him, so he has to waive it for a team. So he has to pick the team, basically. I can't wait to see how that saga unfolds, and I can't wait to tell you guys and give you guys my thoughts on it when it does happen. So that will take us into our third and penultimate break, where when we come back, we'll be talking a deep dive into this Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks series. I kind of hinted at what I'll be talking about with that earlier. It's a series that I am very excited to talk about. And with that being said, we'll be right back on GSMC Hockey Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, guys, we are back on the GSMC Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcasting Network. We're going to be talking about the Oilers and Canucks. We're going to be giving a little bit preview going into the Game 6, where I'm very excited to see how this one plays out. We talked about it earlier. I'll reiterate what I said. The Edmonton Oilers need to kind of win this need to go far in the Stanley Cup, at least. You have a lot of expectations on these forwards, a lot of great forwards on this Edmonton Oilers team. We talked about Leon Draisaitl. We talked about Connor McDavid. They have Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman. They're getting great production out of their top 6 forward. For them, it's now or never is what I'm looking at, basically. You have a lot of money tied into Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Leon Draisaitl coming up onto a contract year. I don't expect him to go anywhere, really. I think he's an Oiler for the rest of his life, at least as long as Connor McDavid's on this team. Those two seem like they love playing with each other, really love motivating each other through all the trials and tribulations this team does go through. But when it comes down to the Edmonton Oilers, I expect them to not even be close to the same core next year as they are this year right now. That's why I think that they need to win this postseason series, at least going in, and at least have a little bit of momentum with this team. If you go to a conference final, I think you can talk to guys like, hey, this core is fun. Come back at a little bit less money, because this is what I'm looking at right now. This team has we'll round it up. We'll say $10 million in cap space in this offseason. $10 million. I don't even know how they get into the situation. It's Darnell Nurse. That's how they get into the situation. They have $10 million with, you ready for this one, guys? Dylan Holloway, Connor Brown, Sam Carrick, Warren Fogle, Sam Gagner, Adam Henrique, Matthias Janmark, Corey Perry, Philip Broberg, and Vincent Desharnais, and Calvin Pickard. 11? Was that 11 or was that 16? 11. 11 current players on your squad are going into free agency. And you only have $9 million, or you have $10 million to resign them. Put those puzzles together for me. I don't understand how they do this one. I don't understand how they wiggle out this one. Their problem, they're paying 3 guys the exact same thing to do pretty much the exact same thing. Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins are all getting a little bit over $5 million. You have $21 million in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So there goes $40 million basically of your cap space. Then, when you're getting into the defenseman side of things, this is where it really all goes. You have $9.25 million in Darnell Nurse. Now that's a bad contract. $9.25 million in a guy that can't score and a guy that can't really defend. Darnell Nurse has had a absolute stinker of a postseason, let me tell you. He has been bad. He's not a good player. And you have $9.25 million in him. What's it with Edmonton Oilers and overpaying defensemen? Adam Larson. Ring a bell? Why do they love overpaying the number one defenseman on their team who isn't a number one defenseman on any other team competing for Stanley Cup, competing for the Stanley Cup in the NHL? How do you get $9.25 million tied up in Darnell Nurse and you're getting no production out of him from the playoffs? He also has a non-movable clause. He's stuck there in Edmonton. You have $7.5 million in your goalies in Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner. Jack Campbell has not done a thing in Edmonton. That was a horrible free agency signing. That was $5 million. You have $2.6 million in Stuart Skinner. That's $7.6 million in goalies. $25 million in your defensemen. $40 million in your forwards. That adds up to $76 million. You know what the cap hit is? It's $87 million. $10 million for 11 players on your team. That's hard to that's so hard to navigate. So let's really look at what they're going to do. $11 million. Dylan Holloway needs to stay. As an RFA, 22 years old, he's a great player. He'll stay. I think he'll stay for around $1.5 million. Warren Fogle has proved to be a great addition to the third line on this team. I think they want to keep him. If they can keep him at $2.5 million, that'd be great. I say 1 by 2.5, 2 by 2.5. See how long Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid stay on this team. That's how long he'll be on this team for, I think. Sam Gagner needs to go. Adam Henrique needs to go. 34 years old for both of them. Matthias Janmark, he's been used as a fourth-line forward. He can go. You can find somebody to do that in the draft, in your prospect pool, in free agency. That's a replaceable guy. You don't need a 31-year-old on the fourth line. Corey Perry, 39 years old. He's already gone, basically. He has a foot out the door. He's not staying around. He's retiring for sure. Then your defensemen, you have 5 defensemen right now. Cody Cece's still getting paid $3.25 million. That's not a good contract either. Matthias Ekholm, $6 million. That's probably their best defenseman contract, but it's still not great. He's taking up about 7% of your cap hit, Matthias Ekholm, and he's getting the second best production out of any of your defensemen besides Evan Bouchard. So you need one more defenseman. You probably are looking at your prospect pool for the one more defenseman. I can't name any Edmonton prospects off the top of my head that can fill that role, but I bet that they have somebody in the AHL kind of ready and waiting. Actually, I can definitely look really quick to give you guys maybe whatever. But yeah, they need one more defenseman. They're going to need a lot of forwards. That's what's scaring me. They have 7 forwards on contract through next year. You have 5 more pieces, probably 7 more pieces because you want 14 forwards on your team at any point. That's very scary. You need to go out and get at least 6 guys. Go out and get at least 6 guys in a free agency where you only have $9 million to work with. That's going to be a very hard thing to navigate. That's why I say, and this brings me all the way back to the point that the Edmonton Oilers really need to get it done in this Game 6. And they really need to get it done in this Game 7. They need to have guys take the pay cut. They need to have guys... they need to see guys playing better on the power play. They need better 5-on-5 production. You're paying Ryan Nugent-Hopkins $5 million to just play on the power play, basically. You're paying Evander Kane $5 million to just play 5-on-5, basically. It's weird how they're using these contracts. I don't think that... I feel like there's a lot of bad contracts on this team, and we're seeing that come to fruition in this offseason. The Edmonton Oilers have a very, very interesting team, a very interesting position where you have the 2 best players in the world. And then you have a fantastic young defenseman in Evan Bouchard. And that's it. And that takes you to the second round. Does it take you any further? It took you to the Western Conference Finals last year. Does it take you any further? It doesn't. They're getting production in the playoffs, but they're not going far enough. It's hard because what more do you want them to do, really, the Edmonton Oilers? What more do you want them to do? They put guys around Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You're getting Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. All these guys are playing well. And then you have what you think are great defenseman contracts. You think Darnell Nurse is going to be a great defenseman. You think Matthias Ekholm is going to be a great defenseman. You think Evan Bouchard is going to be a great defenseman. And then you also, on top of all that, Jack Campbell, $5 million in the offseason. You went out and grabbed a goaltender who played amazing in Toronto the last 2 years. But it's not happening. You're not getting... It's not working. On paper, it should. On paper, it should. We talk about this a lot with a lot of teams in a lot of different sports. On paper, this should work. Why is it not working? I don't think that... I don't think that they did anything wrong. I just think that this core can't do it. So I think that they're going to need to blow it up if they do lose this Game 6. They can't do that is the problem. I think that they're just going to be stuck in kind of purgatory where they're going to make the first round next year, get eliminated. Leon Draisaitl might want to move after that. Then Connor McDavid is going to want to move in the next offseason. In his 29-year-old season, this is the greatest player in the world that you're looking at, and he might leave you. Sound familiar, Edmonton Oilers fans? Wayne Gretzky did the same thing. But Wayne Gretzky won you 4 cups before he left. And he won 7 hearts, 8 hearts for the Oilers. So I think you take that a lot more than you take the Connor McDavid production. It's going to be interesting to see when it's all said and done for Connor McDavid, when you look back at his Edmonton Oiler tenure, and it's going to be... You're going to look at it as a little bit of a failure in Edmonton. If he stays in Edmonton, especially if this core doesn't get it done ever, I'm speaking out of hypotheticals. They're only down 1 game in the series. They can win the next 2 easily. They could play the Stars or the Avs, and they can be the better team. And then you're in a cup final, and you're looking at this entirely differently. But how many times can you definitively say that that you're watching how many times has the undisputed best player in their sport, undisputed for more than 5 years in a row now, best player in their sport, hasn't won a trophy in their sport, hasn't won the championship in their sport? Well, let's look at it. Shohei Ohtani's only been dominating for 2 years in MLB. I don't think that you can put him on the standard of Connor McDavid at all. Deep into MLB, maybe Barry Bonds. I think Barry Bonds would probably be the best look at this, but he has just such an asterisk-sized career that you don't use him as an example. I can't really name any. Is what I'm getting at here. I can't name many that have been the undisputed greatest player in their sport for over a 5-year span now, and not had any production when it comes to winning the sport. It's so weird. Once again, I could be talking all of this just to say in a couple of days when we get back on Monday at the GSMC Hockey Podcast, oh, the Oilers won Game 6, now they're playing a Game 7, and they might win a Game 7, and then right. I could be wrong about all of this, and we're going to look at the core a lot differently. But right now, in the present moment, I'm looking at this core, and I'm a little bit disappointed. So that'll do it. That'll wrap it up for our fourth and penultimate segment of this Friday night GSMC Hockey Podcast. When I get back, we'll be talking about the games that are ongoing right now, give a little bit of a dive into what we've been watching, what the action's been, and what it means for the playoffs currently. Thank you for tuning in now. Alright guys, we are back with our final segment of the night, the GSMC Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We're going to get right into our fifth and final segment here, a look into the games that are ongoing currently. Right now, or a little bit ago, we talked about it, just a reminder, the Panthers finished the Boston Bruins season. That ends in the second round here. The Panthers now move on to the Eastern Conference Final, where they face off against the New York Rangers. That's going to be an exciting one. I've been saying it for weeks. Collision course. The Panthers made me a little wrong. I said Panthers in 7, but hey, I'll take it. I predicted the Panthers. I'm 2 for 2 on the Eastern Conference prediction, or on the predictions for the second round. I had the Rangers in 6. That was exactly correct. And then I had the Panthers winning that series. The other one going over to Colorado, I did have Colorado in 7. So if the Colorado Avalanche can prove me right, that would be lovely. But, I'm not rooting for any team here. Just enjoying talking about these teams. When it comes down to the Panthers versus the Bruins, of course, I was live on air. I was not able to watch the conclusion of this game. It seems like a wild one. Very early into the game, however, I can talk about Pavel Zacha gets his first goal of the postseason. He's been buzzing, really, this entire postseason. He's been one of the more electric forwards for the Boston Bruins. So it does not shock me that he finally gets on the board. Unfortunately, it's in their very last game, so you're not going to see much more. This was a goal less than 1 minute into the entire game. The Boston Bruins go 59 minutes scoreless. Bobrovsky must have absolutely shut the door on the Boston Bruins, leading to their elimination here. midway through the second, Anton Lundell gets his second of the postseason. He's been playing really well lately. It's assisted by Carter Verhaeghe for the Florida Panthers. That ties up the game at 1 apiece. And then Gustav Forsling with his second of the postseason. This was a weird game. A lot of depth forwards scoring, but Anton Lundell gets the assist. And Matthew Tkachuk gets his 10th assist, his 14th point of the postseason. He's been great this postseason. And, of course, that goal, as I mentioned earlier, came with a minute and a half remaining in this game. That is a very weirdly played out game. Just talking about the goals, of course, I did not get to watch it yet. I'm, of course, going to take a look back onto it. But what it looks like just from the goals is you go 1 minute in, a goal, 1 minute and a half before the game ends, a goal, and then in between there is a goal. That's a weird one. You're going 57 minutes basically with 1 goal action. That's a weird one to watch. I bet the Boston Bruins fans aren't loving that one. It must have been an absolute goaltending duel, and we see one of the more prominent goaltenders in the NHL right now. He does burn out of these playoffs. Of course, we're talking about Jeremy Swayman. He is no longer in these postseason. No forwards have to worry about him anymore. That's going to be a sigh of relief for the Rangers forwards, as they haven't really been tested by a goaltender yet. I wouldn't say Freddie Anderson is much of a test, and the Capitals' goaltending situation has been, I would say, anything short from good this year. So yeah, you're getting you got great production out of Bobrovsky in this entire series. He's been really good in this postseason, and now you got the Florida Panthers in back-to-back Eastern Conference Final. From what looked like a good core that kind of got flipped on its head 2 years ago when they made the trade for Matthew Tkachuk. To get him from the Calgary Flames, sending Jonathan Huberdeau the other way. Maybe it was just Jonathan Huberdeau, although I love how that guy plays hockey. He's an amazing center. He's done great things in Calgary. So you're going to look back on that trade if you're a Florida Panthers fan and be very happy about it. But I think it's a very even trade still. The Panthers now in their second Eastern Conference Final. Last year in the Eastern Conference Final, they were able to sweep the Carolina Hurricanes 4-0 to advance to the Cup Final, where they were got tracked down by the Vegas Golden Knights. That magical run for the Florida Panthers came to an end, but it looks like they might be able to repeat that run. You get another Metropolitan team in the New York Rangers. I think this is a lot better of a team. We talk about it a lot. This is a collision course the entire season in the Eastern Conference. We really expected it to be just the Florida Panthers, the New York Rangers vying for that Eastern Conference spot, and we're going to see it head to head. I can't wait for that series. That's going to be an absolute treat when we get down to it. But over in the West, talking about this game a little bit, it is the Dallas Stars Colorado Avalanche. No goals have been scored yet in this one, about 9 minutes into the first period. This means everything to the Colorado Avalanche. You are going to need to win. You need to win it because it's a game. It's a game 6. You're down 3-2. You're going to need to win this for this core, however. For this core of Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, Arturi Lehkonen, not Valerie Nichushkin, Devin Tace. Sure, we'll toss him in there. I'm just on one. All right, let me tell you, I'm going for a lot of people. Of course, Valery Nichushkin is not able to play in the NHL for 6 months. He might never play in the NHL ever again, which are the reports that I have been reading. That's going to be an interesting one. Colorado Avalanche are going to need to get scoring from Cale Makar in this game if they're going to want to win, if they're going to want to prayer here. That's been kind of the catalyst to a lot of the offense for the Avalanche this series and this postseason. Of course, Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen are fantastic offensive players in their own right, but I always love to shout out Cale Makar because he's playing a defensive position at a higher rate than we've seen defensemen play in a very, very long time. That Cale Makar kid is something special in the NHL. And we kind of see it a little bit similarly with Quinn Hughes on the Canucks, but let me tell you, Cale Makar, I think, has blown Quinn Hughes out of the water. They had a Calder race when both of them are rookies, but I think Cale Makar has absolutely stepped up and became just the Norris favorite for many, many years to come. But yeah, there's not been any action in this game to really report yet. I expect the Colorado Avalanche to win this game. This is a Game 6 in Colorado. They have the home ice advantage. We talk about it kind of similarly in the NBA. The Denver Nuggets have that altitude change when they go to home court that they're used to, that their opponents aren't yet. It's the same in hockey. It might be even more in hockey when you're talking about altitude. It's harder when you have to get used to that. In hockey, your stamina goes down a lot faster than it does in the NBA. So you're going to need to get used to that, and that's a lot harder. So I do fully expect the Colorado Avalanche to win this Game 6, force the Game 7 back in Dallas where anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. Jake Onger could maybe just full-on steal this game or next game, and then that's the end of the road for the Colorado Avalanche. So, yeah, without further ado, I think that will wrap it up for this Friday night podcast. I'm going to go watch this final game and talk about it a lot more on Monday as I come back from the weekend that has a lot of great series closeout games. It looks like that third round of the Stanley Cup Finals is going to be able to be predicted a little bit better when it comes down to those games. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, guys, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you guys once again, and all of you have a wonderful day.
Let's go.